Administration and its policies. This was President Trump's jet emblazoned with King Trump on its side. The president then appears to dump raw sewage on protesters. This new wave of No Kings rallies, as they're called, boasted nearly 7 million attendees across 50 states. With us now, Republican strategist Doug Heye and former press secretary to then Vice President Joe Biden, Kendra Barkoff. Kendra, let me just start with you. What do you think these protests showed this weekend?
Well, they showed that people are unhappy with Donald Trump's policies. You had more than 7 million people coming out in 50 states across the country. They are angry. People voted Donald Trump to lower gas prices, to lower grocery prices, and that is clearly not happening. And on top of that, I would just say that video that he created, I am sorry, that is something that 10-year-old boys may get a good chuckle at, but the reality is, if this Republican Party, led by Donald Trump, continues to not take these people seriously, great. Let's keep it up, because that is great news for Democrats the upcoming election.
This is what President Trump had to say beyond the AI video. Listen.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. It looks like it was. We're checking it out. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
Mr. President, besides San Francisco...
By the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king.
So, Doug, you called them very small, very ineffective. I will note, I mean, we're just a few weeks before elections across the country here.
We begin with a study in contrast. Here are Presidents George W. Bush and President Barack Obama when confronted by public opposition to their policies.
Democracy is a beautiful thing, and that people are allowed to express their opinion. I welcome people's right to say what they believe.
I've listened to you. I heard you. I heard you. I heard you. All right? Now, I've been respectful. I let you holler. All right? So let me nobody's removing you. I've heard you, but you've got to listen to me too.
Believe me, no president likes to see the public turn out in large numbers against them and their agenda. But when it does happen, as you saw there, every one of them understands that it is the people's right to exercise free speech and to criticize their elected leaders at the top of their lungs. And that very thing is what makes America great. That is what makes America America. It's what makes us special all around the world. Until right now. Donald Trump showed the world what he thinks of the American people by literally broadcasting an image of himself pouring feces all over America and the American people. The No Kings protests clearly getting deep under Donald Trump's skin over the weekend. But more importantly, the protests show the contours of a new opposition in America, one led by the people. According to the organizers, 7 million people came out to protest Donald Trump on Saturday. More than 100,000 people marched in New York City. In Chicago, the march at one point stretched 22 blocks. But the protests were hardly confined to big cities in blue states. Here's what the No Kings protests look like in Anchorage, Alaska. Thousands of people taking to the streets. And the protests included people protesting from all walks of life. Here's what a U.S. Army veteran told a reporter at a protest in Oklahoma City.
I was willing to die and lost a leg in a foreign country fighting for their rights. There's no way I'm bending the only knee I have left for a king here in America. I can't sit idly by why rights are trampled on and ignored, and people are pushed and treated like second-class citizens.
The Washington Post reports that efforts by Republicans in the last week to smear the protests ahead of the protests fell flat. Quote, Ezra Levin, co-founder of the liberal grassroots movement Indivisible, that has co-organized the No Kings rally, said that RSVPs had skyrocketed. He credited the increased interest in part to the Republicans' rhetoric about the rallies. Protesters told MSNBC in every city we covered that they felt an urgent need to stand up to the Trump administration.
They're not going to intimidate us with tyrant talk. We are out here to stand up for this democracy.
Do not cower to the fascism and the threats that are coming from D.C. That's what they want us to do, and they will only be successful in that if we remain silent.
I'm very much opposed to all of the policies of Donald Trump. I don't think we need a king. We definitely don't need a dictatorship, and it's time for him to go. I'm against everything that he says and does.
This is the most American thing that you can do. Protest and speak for what you believe in.
The people who come out here and fight and who want to resist, those are the people who make change. Those are the people who make history. And there are way more, like I said, there are way more of us than there are of them.
We have a constitution for a reason. It provides us inalienable rights that we have to adhere to. And in this country, we have no kings, period.
Millions of Americans rising up to protest Donald Trump is where we start today. Hunter Dunn is back. He's the spokesperson and national press coordinator for the 5051 movement, the organization behind the No Kings protest this weekend. Also joining us, chief political columnist, host of the podcast In Politic for Puck, MSNBC national affairs analyst John Heilman is back. And joining me at the table, Princeton University professor, MSNBC political analyst Eddie Glaude is here. Hunter, I start with you. You and John and I actually spoke around this time Friday ahead of the protest. Tell me what you saw. If anyone was I don't know where you had to be this weekend to miss them. They were literally in every town, in every corner, and coverage has been everywhere. But just give me a summary of what we saw in America over the weekend and tell me if it exceeded your expectations or projections.
Yeah, I was helping organize the protest in downtown Los Angeles, where we had, based on drone footage, well over 100,000 people gathered together and hundreds of thousands more around the county and around the state of California. We saw over 7 million people protest at over 2,700 events around the world in peaceful dissent against Trump's authoritarian power grab, against his regime, against the ICE deportations, against the rise of fascism in this country. And I'm just going to tell you this, I've never seen a coalition this big. We had libertarians and democratic socialists, not just at the same protest, but working together to make it happen. And that is a massive shift from where we have been as a country over the past couple decades.
Hunter, was there any footage that came in as the day went on from any corners or towns that surprised you?
Yeah, well, first off, I was surprised by where we kicked off. It wasn't actually in the U.S. It started in South Korea because their October 18th is earlier than ours. But I saw small protests around the country. So I grew up in Orange County, and an amazing place that I saw was Huntington Beach, California, which is an incredibly red area. I've seen straight up basically Nazi rallies there. So to see a No Kings protest, to see a large turnout of people left, right, and center against this regime, that is a massive shift in what we're seeing. And we saw that in small towns around all 50 states, whether it's a red state or a blue state, a red state or a blue city, whether it's rural or urban. We saw a coalition that I don't think we've seen since World War II.
Hunter, we have some reporting here from the NYPD. They tweeted, quote, "The majority of the No Kings protests have been dispersed at this time. All traffic closures have been lifted. We had more than 100,000 people across all 5 boroughs peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights, and the NYPD made 0 protest-related arrests." The story was the same in New York, Austin, San Diego, Charlotte, Portland, according to the police departments. Donald Trump's response was to post an image of himself, thankfully AI generated, but we won't rule anything out at this hour, in an aircraft dumping feces across America and Americans. Even for him, it seemed like a new low. Any response to his reaction to the success of the No Kings protest?
Well, first off, I don't know what was worse, that video or him actually detonating a shell over the I-5. But just a quick recap, there was a ton of different GOP lies about No Kings, right? Democrats will end the shutdown post No Kings. That hasn't happened. Protesters are wildly violent. As you covered, that wasn't true. Protesters are paid. No, they're not. Soros checks are not coming in. I can tell you that much. And no one showed up. That was absolutely not true. We saw over 7 million people come out across the world. The only thing that Trump said or did this entire time that wasn't a lie was him shitting on everyday Americans. And he's been doing that since long before he gained political office.
National Guard. It's one thing for a nation to send troops abroad. It's another to send them into its own streets. Trump calls it restoring order. His supporters call it strength. But look closer. This isn't law enforcement. It's a message. The uniforms, the armored trucks, the sirens at dusk. They're not chasing criminals. They're chasing a feeling. The feeling that America is slipping away from him, and that the only way to hold it together is through force. He says cities like Chicago and Portland are out of control. He says he's protecting Americans. But the images tell a different story. Soldiers standing where teachers should be. Barricades where playgrounds should be. Fear where freedom once stood. It's not protection, it's occupation. And it's happening not in someone else's capital, but right here, under the same flag people still hang from their porches. The justification is always the same. Crime, drugs, chaos, security. But every authoritarian playbook begins that way. You declare the people the enemy. You flood the streets with order. And you dare anyone to question it. Because by then, questioning feels dangerous. Trump knows that. He's not deploying troops because he's lost control of cities. He's deploying them because he's losing control of the narrative. The images of soldiers on U.S. soil make him look powerful. They give his followers something simple to understand. Him versus disorder. Never mind that the disorder is democracy itself. Protests, elections, dissent, free press. He's not at war with chaos. He's at war with choice. And the tragedy is how familiar it all feels. We've seen this story before in places we once condemned. Leaders sending armed men into their own streets for safety. It never ends with peace. It ends with silence, with fear so thick that even the truth starts whispering. Maybe the saddest part is how many Americans will accept it. They'll see soldiers patrolling neighborhoods and call it patriotism. They'll hear the hum of helicopters and feel safe, because the longer you live with fear, the more it starts to feel like stability. And that's how freedom dies, not with handcuffs, but with applause. Trump doesn't need to declare martial law. He's building something quieter, a culture that confuses obedience with unity, that mistakes surrender with peace. And if history tells us anything, it's that once a nation turns its troops inward, it doesn't heal, it hardens. So maybe this is the test, not for Trump, but for everyone else. For governors who refuse his orders, for judges who still believe in limits, for citizens who understand that law without conscience is just control. Because someday, when the dust clears and the soldiers go home, we'll have to answer one question. Not whether America survived, but what version of America walked out on the other side.